Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. And today we're doing something a little bit different, a little bit unique. We're not in a house, we're on a yacht today with my buddy Eric. Eric, he's a licensed yacht broker. He's gonna be talking to us about everything that you need to know about chartering a yacht, buying a boat, and just life here on the water in sunny South Florida. Eric, thank you so much for having me today, man.
Thank you, Joe, for having me. Whether you're just a yacht enthusiast, serious about buying or selling your yacht, or just looking to go out for a couple of hours, we're here to help you out today.
So we're gonna be diving into everything that you need to know about chartering a boat, buying a boat, and just life on the water here in South Florida. So Eric, thank you so much for the time and for having me over.
No, thank you for having me, Joe. I've seen your work. Amazing videos so far. But like you mentioned, yes, I am a yacht broker here in South Florida. I specialize in yacht sales, acquisitions, and I also have a yacht charter company.
So Eric, we used to work together, and then we both went our separate ways, but I love that we're coming back around now.
Yes.
Real estate brokerage and yacht brokerages, similar but different. So tell me a little bit how you got into it, made this your full-time gig now.
So I actually have a bit of a unique background. I worked in customer service for a while, and I worked in the music industry for a while, and then I ended up working in retail with you at Apple, like you just mentioned. And at Apple, I learned obviously a lot of great skills, but that's really where I realized that I'm just really good with people. People were my skills. And also just wanted to take that to the next level. And I thought, what's the craziest thing I can go sell? That wasn't real estate, and yachts wasn't the light bulb, and I just pursued that. So back then, there wasn't a lot of information on how to become a yacht broker. I mean, we're talking 10 years ago at this point. So a friend of mine had just become a captain, and I reached out to him, and he introduced me to a yacht broker, and I signed up with them. So when I first got my yacht broker's license, I did start as a sales broker, and I sort of did it part-time on the side, and kept working at Apple until I was able to take my first step in going down part-time, and then just kept making sales until it was enough for me to quit altogether.
And I remember we were in the break room and you were like, I got this big sale coming up. Like, I think I'm gonna do part-time. And I was like, good for you. Like, that's amazing.
No, it was always a lot of support from you, which is really nice.
Yeah, and it's just so nice to like, you know, be working together and then like us do our own thing and then just to see your success. Yes. So yeah, really, I'm so excited to do this video. Let's just dive right in. Could you tell us just maybe a little bit more about your qualifications and why somebody would even, you know, choose to work with a yacht broker?
I am a licensed and bonded yacht broker in the state of Florida, and I also own a yacht charter company. I'm doing this for about 10 years. And it's very important to have a yacht broker when purchasing a yacht for several different reasons. Number one, and I think one of the biggest reasons, is just it doesn't cost you a thing. But aside from that, there's just a lot of information that can be omitted if you approach a listing broker or even the seller directly without having somebody you report. Our approach with our buyers is a little bit different. We like to focus on data because at the end of the day, a lot of our buyers know a ton about boats, maybe even more than us, 9 times out of 10. So we have access to things like comps, which is something that's a little bit different than real estate in yachting. You only have access to comps if you're a yacht broker.
I didn't know that. So there's not like a Zillow.com for boats, or you can't go on the tax record or you know go on the property appraiser website and look up what's sold and you know make your calculations and structure your offer that way.
Exactly. Right? You can go to Yacht World and see what's on the market, but you can't see what that boat sold for last. And those are the things we like to focus on. So we like to see how long do these boats actually sit on the market for before selling. What was the last make and model just like that sold for, right? And actually we go as far as finding out at what percentage do they sell below asking price. So we know we can give you a very close figure as to what you can expect to pay for this yacht. Because our biggest thing is just making sure you buy the best yacht at the best price.
Yeah, it sounds like you're really there to guide that buyer, making sure that they're not overpaying, but then they also don't miss out because you're taking a look at like you said, days on market, but then also that final sales price.
Exactly.
And that data isn't, I couldn't believe that. It's not available
It's
anywhere.
not public information at all. Right. And that's also something buyers don't realize. So they tend to either overpay and just not knowing this information. It's very easy to do that.
Definitely. So we're talking about that first-time buyer or somebody who's buying a yacht. They found that yacht online. They're contacting you. What does that journey look like for somebody who wants to actually go forward once they found a boat that they're interested in?
So generally speaking, the process to actually purchasing a yacht is very similar to real estate. So we have a purchase offer. That seller accepts, so we negotiate, so we agree to a number. Once we're in the contract, there is a deposit that goes into escrow. Once that deposit's in escrow, the buyer then has the opportunity to hire what's called a mechanical surveyor and a structural surveyor. And that is, we take a full day, have those guys come on board, and they inspect every angle of the boat. Engines, structure, the hull. We actually pull the boat out of the water to check the bottoms. And it's just a full day of figuring out what's wrong with this boat. Once it's back in the water, we typically take it out for what's called a sea trial, where we run everything at full throttle, make sure there's nothing overheating, no alarms going off. And then a few days after that, you get back your survey report. Once you get that report back, that's your time to renegotiate. So again, very similar to real estate and a home inspection. And once we have that survey back, then we know, okay, well, we have 15 things wrong with this boat. And that's your time to say, hey, seller, I want you to either fix all these things or give me a credit for this and we can proceed to closing. And then that's where we do our job. Is make sure that we're getting everything reasonably done. But one of the biggest things that we like to tell our buyers from the beginning is, yes, expect things to come back on the survey. These are boats. So things will come back. Things that sellers weren't even aware of will pop up on the survey. So it's not out of the norm for you to have a pretty lengthy survey report. The biggest thing is making sure that we're getting the proper things addressed for you.
Definitely. Just like a home inspection, there's gonna be that ground fault outlet in the kitchen that's off.
Right.
Or, a hinge or a bathroom with the plumbing.
Yes.
I'm sure there's everything under the sun, right?
Yeah. Literally.
Yeah. So they're going through the process, but even before they go through the process, there's so many different types of boats out there.
Right.
What are some common boats that you see buyers in South Florida eyeing or going for?
So South Florida, there are really two types of boats that are very popular. You have your express cruisers, which can range anywhere from 35 feet upwards of 100 feet. And those are boats with a very nice shared space. They typically have a downstairs with a couple of staterooms and a galley, but there's no what's called a flybridge to the boat. So the flybridge is that second level. And that's the other very popular boat that you'll see in South Florida. So it's something like just the one that's sitting right behind us, where you've got the main deck and then you have that second level to the boat. So that's called the flybridge model. And those are the main two. Now we're also seeing a lot of high-end day boats, whereas a couple of years ago, it was just the Van Dutch, which had a very nice, sexy look. And now you've got different boats. And you've got Vanquishes, you've got Pardos, Fjords making a comeback. So the high-end day boats are sort of re-emerging. So those, I would say those 2 to 3 are the most popular boats in South Florida.
Nice. So I know that we talked about, a lot of different boats, but to break it down for, people watching, what would somebody who is looking at, a boat for their family versus, a longer stay, maybe they want to travel with it.
Right.
What are some things that they should take into consideration when they're going on the market and, they're working with you to find a boat?
Right, that's a really good question. It honestly really comes down to preference, and it's just that, what are you going to use the boat for? Are you a bachelor where you're just gonna have a bunch of friends that come party for a couple of hours and then go home? Or is it a family of 4 or 5 where you're usually gonna want to stay overnight or take that trip to the Bahamas for the week? So we really have to get that information out of the buyer to figure out what's best. Now, if you've never owned a boat, one of the biggest things that we actually suggest doing is chartering a boat for the day. It costs you a lot less than purchasing that boat and realizing you got the wrong one, but it gives you a really good idea with a captain on board, a stewardess on board, possibly some catering or a chef. They cruise the area, because all different types of boats also cruise differently. So charter a boat on a rougher and see how that feels, right? Because that's something that you can't really expect or can't go against Mother Nature, right? If the sea decides to pick up, how are you guys going to handle that?
Right.
So chartering a boat is one really, really easy way. My style of showing boats, if you don't have the time or the chance to charter a boat, is I just like to get you on different boats, because looking at a boat online is one thing, and they look very nice and very appealing, but then you've got some boats that are pretty tall and the headspace isn't enough, right? Or the layout just doesn't work. Like this yacht, for example, has the galley downstairs. Some wives like the galleys upstairs, for hosting purposes. So it really comes down, but every boat has a different layout. They're all just so unique. So the more boats you can get on and walk through, and I always encourage, bring the families, right? Bring the wives, bring the husbands, and see how you guys feel on it. That to me is the best way to go about picking it up.
That's such a good point, because it's almost like in real estate, like the split levels. Do you want a two-story? Do you want a single?
Right.
Do you want a ranch? Spread out. So I didn't even think about that. Like if somebody's, a family, they might want the galley, at the same level.
Right.
They don't want to have to go down.
Right. Exactly. Or some prefer the galley downstairs. So if they do have a chef on board, the chef is down there out of the way. So again, it all comes down to preference.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned chartering. So can you tell us a little bit more? Because I know, yes, people love to buy, but there's also a huge market for yacht charters. How does that work in Miami?
Yacht charters are very simple. At the moment, there's a ton of yacht charter companies. There are a ton of yachts available for charter. I specialize in the higher end luxury private charters. So my limit, for example, is 12 passengers on any size yacht that I have. So you can go as small as 52 feet, upwards of 120 feet. So you can go out for, usually do 4, 6, and 8 hours. And again, it comes down to preference. If you say, what yacht should I charter? Well, I ask, what's your style? Right? I don't like to lead with budget. I just like to figure out what style, which yacht do you feel would fit you and your party best, and then go about it that way. But mainly focusing in the Miami Beach area. And again, a wide variety of express cruisers, fly bridges. Again, I have a 120-foot express cruiser where there is no fly bridge on that boat. It's just a whole lot of boat on the same level, right? So it's very, chartering is more popular now as well. But my focus is just privacy, it's luxury, and just really giving that experience when you're out on the water.
So Eric, when it comes to chartering a yacht, what are some questions that people should ask before they sign an agreement or hop on board?
So some of the questions you should ask is, A, is this the actual yacht that I'm chartering?
Yeah, you see a photo online, but are you actually getting that?
You may arrive to the dock and then the boat's there, and at that point,
does that happen?
It's happened before. It's not something I do. So every single yacht on my site, for example, that I work with is the yacht you're actually chartering. Well, that brings me to the next question you should ask. Send me a charter agreement. Right?
Why is that important?
Because a charter agreement, number one, it's necessary for the U.S. Coast Guard. So to be compliant with the Coast Guard, you need a yacht charter agreement.
Okay.
But that charter agreement is also going to specify which yacht it is you're signing up for. The owner of that yacht's information will be on the contract as well.
Okay.
You should have what's called a crew selection sheet. So you should be able to actually pick the crew that you'd like to have on board. All the fees are listed on there. So if gratuity is not included, it should be listed on there. If they don't include solars and waters, it should be listed on there. And then dockage fees. Dockage fees typically apply when you're picking up at a marina, which is not where the boat lives. So if Joe's like, hey, I'm in Miami Beach and the boat lives in downtown, can you pick me up here? Sure, but this dockage fee, $5 a foot is going to apply. So just asking all those right questions and simply asking, are there any other fees I should worry about? Right? Little things, if I take a credit card, there's merchant fees, but again, those are all things that will be stated up front.
So it's good to have, a full agreement in your hand.
Yes.
Review it before,
Correct. I will not send anybody any money without having that.
That's good to know. I didn't know that about the agreement.
Yes. Yeah. Like I said, it's down specific to the yacht, to the crew, to where you're leaving from, where you're coming back to. It really specifies everything that you need to know on.
That's important because I've seen also on some websites where like they ask for a credit card and they want your information before they even send that.
It's for me, it's not necessary. I also want to make sure that yacht's available, right? So that's where that's happened, where you may see a photo online of a yacht that you want, and then it may be a different yacht that's similar. But yeah, at the end of the day, this is not Hertz or Enterprise. You don't want something similar. You want that yacht that you chose. And with the amount of yachts that are on the water for charter, you just want to make sure you know exactly what you're getting.
Yeah. So Eric, after somebody does a charter with you, I'm sure that they fell in love with the whole boat and they want to get their own. So what are some costs or what are some things that people don't know when it comes to the financials of owning a boat?
Very good question. And I've actually had that happen before. I'm actually working with a buyer now who was a charter client of mine. So a few questions that we ask now that we weren't asking before at the beginning of this process. The biggest question now is, do you have a slip? So where you want to put this boat? Slips specifically in Miami have become very scarce, and the very few that are available are just extremely expensive. I mean, the prices have skyrocketed. It's because of the amount of boats that are in Miami. So that's the number one question, aside from what size yacht would you be looking to purchase. So number one is dockage, right? Where are we going to put this boat once you own it? The second question we're finding ourselves asking now is about insurance. Insurance at the moment is very volatile. Those rates are also extremely high, similar to what you guys are on the other state. We do have a bigger hurricane risk than most because our boats sit on the water. So we need a hurricane plan. If you're a first-time boat owner, the insurance may require you to have extra things in place like a full-time captain. So those are the first two questions we're asking now when you mention possibly purchasing dockage and insurance. After that, we can get into the details of what size boat are you looking for, what style of boat are you looking for, what budget would you want to stay under.
What are some things when it comes to maintenance? So I know that you mentioned like a monthly cleaning. Like, what are some things that people could expect when they do start to purchase a yacht?
One of the other biggest things in owning a yacht is having the proper management. Managing and maintenance of your yacht is very, very crucial for the overall experience of you even going boating. If you're not managing the boat properly, you may show up to the boat with all your friends and family. It may not be able to leave the dock, which is not fun. So having the right managers, they're now a very safe number that we used to work with as far as what it would cost you to manage your boat, maintain your boat, was 10% of the purchase price. So if you paid $1 million for your yacht, you can say it's going to cost you roughly $100,000 a year to maintain. We like to go with the figure of 12 to 15%, right? Things happen. But also what happens is if you're approaching that 10% and it's August, right? If you're planning for 12 to 15%, you may not be hesitant to go ahead and cough up what it's going to cost to continue to repair or maintain the yacht. But if you're just stuck on that 10% figure, once you reach that $100,000, you're not going to want to spend any more money because you feel like this is what I should be spending. So we like to aim for 12 to 15% of the purchase price of the yacht.
Yeah, it's definitely better to be a little more conservative, especially with insurance. We're feeling it in the housing market.
Right.
You know how volatile it is. So, we budget a little bit more even for insurance when it comes to, getting somebody a mortgage.
Right. So, I mean, at this point, we're going as far as getting you an insurance quote.
Yes.
Prior to making an offer. Well,
yes.
So if you say to me, hey, Eric, I want to purchase a yacht for $1 million, we're going to ask on that insurance quote, what's a $1.5 million yacht going to cost to show? So we're going to go for the biggest boat at the top of your budget. So whatever you end up with is less than that. But at least you know what the max of your insurance is going to be.
Okay. Eric, are there ever any opportunities for owners to do renovations or to do anything like value add? Like if they do buy a boat for $1 million and then maybe they want to increase the value, is there any way for people to do that normally?
Yes and no. Yachts are not investments. So that's also one word I like to take out of the conversation very early on. At the end of the day, yachts are liabilities. They are assets, but they're not investments. They don't appreciate in value at all. So they're actually one of the fastest depreciating assets you can own. So we have what are called refits. But typically, we also have to set the right expectations that, hey, everything you spend on your yacht, you may not get back from that once it comes time to sell. Because once you call me to say, hey, I'm ready to sell my yacht, I've put $1 million into it. The first thing I have to do is go see what the last one sold for. And if it's $1 million less, then a few things are going to happen. Either it's going to sit on the market for a lot longer, or you're just going to have to accept that I'm not going to get that money back. But believe it or not, most owners are okay with that. It's part of boating, it's part of yachting. They know this is something that just costs a lot of money.
Telling you, like, real estate brokering and yacht brokering, not different. When I walked through somebody's condo, they told me they put, $200,000 of work into it.
Exactly.
And then the last comp sold, at a certain price that they're not happy with.
Right.
It's just like,
it was a preference thing.
Yeah.
But again, this is something that, like I said, it's very niche. And most owners are aware that if I decide to dump this money into the boat, I very well be not getting it back.
Totally.
And the last thing I wish a lot more people would understand about brokerage in general, that commission is definitely earned. It's not given.
Well, Eric, any final thoughts for people watching?
I think we covered most of it. If you're looking or have any thoughts about possibly chartering a yacht, you visit our brokerage website at yachtzero.com. And if you are looking to possibly charter a yacht for a day or two, you can go to ePyachting.com.
Nice. And I will put all the links in the show description below. I'll put Eric's contact information. Got somebody who I trust highly. I've worked with Eric before for many years at Apple on the sales floor, so I can really speak and vouch for you, which I really like.
I appreciate that.
Thank you again so much for having me. Thanks for doing this interview for the audience. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure that you like and subscribe to the channel for more content like this, and to contact Eric for all your yacht needs, whether you're looking at chartering or purchasing. Eric has your back.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Compass, for the opportunity.
All right. See you in the next video.